where they're from, any affiliation in the chat, because we want to be respectful of your time and your willingness to come here on a Sunday evening. We do want to start on time. We do have a wonderfully packed night of information that we want to share. So I'm going to start first with myself. My name is Kamula Tillman. Some people have known me as Nikki. I am the team lead for fundraising for Voter Choice New Jersey. I will be your facilitator this evening, just kind of guiding us through the night, transitioning. We do have an agenda for those who kind of like to know what y'all gonna do. So we're gonna have that put into the chat. Also in the chat, we will put a attendance sheet, and that way we can keep in touch with you. We can stay engaged, answer questions, and maybe help you as you begin to consider participating with us here with Voter Choice New Jersey. So if you haven't done so, welcome to Voter Choice New Jersey's monthly statewide strategy meeting. Again, I am Kamula Tillman. Please, if you have not done so and you're just joining us, enter your name in the chat. We also should have an attendance sheet coming around, which will ask us to give us some contact information from you. And that way we can keep in touch, exchange information, ideas, and things of that sort. So without further ado, I think I am going to get this started. The first order of business, and I know many of you might be on here. I didn't even put my name in the chat, but I'll do it later. The agenda is also posted in the chat if you want to open and take a look at that. There is a sign-in sheet. And then later on, I'll talk about other ways that you can continue to support Voter Choice New Jersey. So I've introduced myself. Many of you have done the same in the chat. So again, welcome. We are now going to have what we call an abbreviated Voter Choice New Jersey campaign overview, and that will be done by none other than our fearless organizer, our strong tower in this organization who keeps the glue together, Miss April Nicholas. So April, you want to go ahead and do the overview?
Absolutely. What a lovely introduction. So my name's April Nicholas. I'm in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm a member of our executive team for Voter Choice New Jersey and also run our teams for messaging and community engagement. So that's a little bit of my background before I dive in here. And I'm just going to do an introduction to the issue of ranked choice voting and Voter Choice New Jersey's campaign to bring it to our state. Very exciting. Next slide. So I imagine most of us, if not all of us here, have a baseline familiarity with ranked choice voting, and we all have our different reasons for why we support it. There are a lot of problems with our current election system right now: toxic polarization, hyperpartisanship, the public being driven further apart as they rush into camps of just two major parties, and this naturally tends to lead to government dysfunction and gridlock. And to make things worse, in most New Jersey elections right now, candidates don't even need a support of a majority of voters to win. So you have a candidate with only 38% of the vote who can win an election, even if the majority of the public aren't in favor of them. And that creates a lot of tension and a lot of voter apathy as a result, feeling like the participation in our elections don't make a difference. And ranked choice voting is what we are aiming to bring to our state to try and tackle all of those different issues. It's a big bundle of things. Next slide. So our vision, big picture goal here, is to get ranked choice voting in place for all New Jersey elections. Now, given the inertia in government and how challenging democracy reform is to win in general, this is a pretty tall order. And to reach this visionary future, we need clear goals to make tangible progress on the path to RCV for all elections. So our goals in Voter Choice New Jersey's campaign for ranked choice voting, there's two big ones. One is to get ranked choice voting ultimately to be used in the general elections for all state and federal races, so state legislature and Congress, et cetera. And to enable ranked choice voting to be adopted for all local elections, including through the use of voter initiatives. So key here is not imposing ranked choice voting to be used in all elections, but making sure that every locality, every municipality, every county has the option to use ranked choice voting, which currently is not permitted in the wording of New Jersey's election law. fun fact, in the wording of the laws that we're working with right now, the determination of who wins an election is the person with, quote, the most votes, not a majority of votes, which is the whole basis for ranked choice voting and why it works well. And because of that wording, we have to have an extra step in the process to just make ranked choice voting available for all of the localities that would clearly like to adopt it. And I will make a tiny note here, a little asterisk at the bottom, that because of the wording in New Jersey's Constitution, governor and lieutenant governor would be a separate battle down the road, because that would require a constitutional amendment. And our main goal for ranked choice voting in the state over the next 3 years is to get RCV to be the norm for as many elections as possible, used by as many people as possible in as many places as possible, so that New Jerseyans can start seeing the benefits of RCV straight away. And so for the time being, we are focused on these two main goals, the state legislation and the local organizing to go along with it. And then the governorship will be a further battle down the road. Next slide. Herb, can you go to the how do we do it slide? Thanks, excellent. All right, so democracy reform can be complicated, politics are challenging, and the way that we'll win ranked choice voting ultimately boils down to this. We need everyone in New Jersey to know about it, understand it, support it, and then turn that support into action. That's how we build the power that we need to win at the state level and in cities and towns across New Jersey. And thankfully, there's a lot of people that are very excited to be working on that, which is why you all are here today, and why we have a wonderful volunteer-run organization of folks who are already working to implement this strategy. So at the state level, we'll be working to introduce and pass 2 bills. The first to get ranked choice voting to be adopted for all local elections, because that's not currently permitted. And we will be working with towns, local organizers to pass trigger ordinances to call on the state to pass that bill, as well as state the interest of that town in using ranked choice voting. And the trigger ordinances, which Renee will be talking about more later, are designed to send a question to the voters so that we have full opt-in and democratic participation in this exciting new reform to the way that we're running elections. So combination of state organizing and local organizing. And while we do need the state to act for ranked choice voting to actually be put into practice, we know that the local organizing that we do in towns across the state is key to being able to get the state to pass that enabling legislation, which is why that's a big focus that we have. And the focus of tonight's meeting, as well as many of our other meetings. Next slide, we'll go into local organizing a little bit more. There's a lot to do. Thankfully, a lot of people that are excited to get involved, and even more people out there who haven't even heard of this movement yet and will be excited to get on board once we reach them. So much of the local organizing work will come through town teams or individual activists or local elected officials that are supportive of ranked choice voting that want to get something started and moving in their town. And Voter Choice New Jersey is a support structure for the success of those locally run initiatives. And Renee will be talking more about that in her presentation, so I won't linger on that too much, but we are very much of the mindset that local activists, you know your town's best, you do the best work there. We have all the technical expertise and larger organizational resources, and we're very much playing the role of providing that support, providing some expertise, some guidance on ordinance language and sample messaging materials and flyers to go out and talk to people and explain to them what ranked choice voting is. And all of that know-how to help local activists circulate petitions, recruit new people to get involved, engage candidates for office and local officials currently in office, all of the work that needs to happen to actually make change in the towns. And we'll talk more about that quite a bit later. Next slide. So here I'm just going to show a visual of our organization structure, just so folks know the way that Voter Choice New Jersey works. These are our state level teams that are centrally, producing the resources and making the plans and working with the local activists to make change on the ground. We are always looking for volunteers for these teams, and there are a few teams where we are seeking additional leaders to help with those team activities as well. We have more internal facing roles, so volunteer onboarding, getting new folks on board and set up with their teams to make a difference. Technology, I think that kind of speaks for itself. If you're into that, you know what that means. Data management to keep all of our lists and information in order. Community engagement, which makes connections with organizations and community leaders, which is complemented on the other side of things by live outreach, which is focused on broad scale outreach to the general public. Fundraising, which Camilla already mentioned she's the head of, which is all about raising money because we need to do at least a little bit of that to make a movement work. And the more of that we can do, the more work we'll be able to get done. That's the reality of the world we live in. Research and policy, so that we have the facts and all of the materials gathered together, all the information that is the backbone and the foundation of everything else that all of our other teams can do. Art and video to make things beautiful and attractive and interesting. Messaging to make sure we're all speaking the same language. Press and media to try and get some broader scale attention on the issue. I know a couple of our volunteers for that team are on tonight and very excited to have you. Social media, which is another way that we reach a large number of people to get our message out. And Speakers Bureau, which does presentations to organizations and communities to educate on ranked choice voting and the work that we're doing to bring it to our state. So that's a brief snapshot of all of the different teams and all of the different things that they do. And we are, like I said, always looking for volunteers. There's a few teams that we're looking for additional leadership. And if you are interested in getting involved in any of those teams, you can message me, you can message Renee, you can put in the chat and shout it to everyone and say, I want to get involved in this. Any and all signs of interest are welcome.
Thank you.
And that's what I got. So I think we're moving on now to
Renee.
Highlights.
Yep. Thank you so much, April. So we are moving on to highlights. And this is the most exciting part of this for me because it lets us know that the efforts and our labor is not in vain. And there's so many wonderful things that Voter Choice New Jersey have been able to leverage off and continue this momentum that we formed. And to share our highlights are none other than our fearless leader, Ms. Renee Steihangen. Renee is a fierce public interest advocate with like this relentless pressure game, short on nonsense and long on policy. She's the executive director at New Jersey Appleseed Public Interest Law Center, and she really has played a very aggressive role in like figuring out the details of this Horizon restricting bill. But more than that, she has been instrumental in setting up ordinances, one that actually was implemented here in Piscataway and actually won over. So we're really excited to have her at the helm of this organization. And Renee, if you want to share those highlights, it is on you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm going to need the highlights shown to me. I'm a little bit off guard here, everybody. I apologize, just so everybody knows. In Openness, I have a home in Massachusetts and tried to get down here and for the first time was coming back to New Jersey and had no idea about the traffic through the Holland Tunnel. We literally sat for about 45 minutes before we got into the tunnel. So April, can we put the slides so I can say? So one of the most important things for us now has been, we have been around and we are all volunteer. And we've had people who have knowledge about press and media And we have been unable to get a leadership to that team, but more recently we have two really active members, one of whom I think is on the phone, Andrew Bolson, and a guy named TJ Mango, who comes from New York. And they are working on a strategy and launching a new letter to the editor effort to drive the conversation in the local media so we can start generating pressure on local municipalities to actually pass the ordinance. Nationally, there was rolled out a 2022 national RCV strategy. It is a merging of the efforts of Fair Vote, who has existed for at least 20 years and has been very heavy on policy research, and Rank the Vote, which we are really local of, an effort that emerged out of the Massachusetts effort and then went national, creating state efforts that I believe are probably in about 40 states at this moment. And what was very interesting, and I will say, April will share it, we were on the line and didn't realize that the national groups have adopted New Jersey's local strategy and have made the first, instead of focusing to get achieved first, state and federal elections, meaning general, they have decided to put their effort on local elections. And I, of course, endorse that. We endorse that, given that we think locally is where people will participate and be exposed to RCV and will become familiar with it. And they have made 500 towns by 2025. The other thing that was really interesting was they have highlighted the trigger ordinances. They actually put up a whole slide to New Jersey. And I think it's an acknowledgement that there are several states that are like ours, where municipalities do not have the independence to go forward with their elections and don't control their elections, but need state enabling legislation. And so I'll discuss that more in detail, the strategy behind trigger ordinances and what we're doing here in New Jersey, particular to New Jersey's forms of municipal government, where every municipality is governed by a charter of some sort. So next slide. Okay, so that was the lead-in. So a trigger ordinance. I think people maybe have heard about them in a wrong way. I will admit that right up front. Trigger ordinances started to be used in the abortion movement, where there, if you might have heard, there people talk about and say, well, if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, there are several states that automatically will become, abortion will no longer be legit. That is because those states have passed trigger statutes, not ordinances, but on the state level. And so what is a trigger ordinance? A trigger ordinance is, it says, this is an ordinance, we're passing it, but it will not go into effect until the state enables us to do this. That's simply what it is. So that is our idea here, because simultaneously we are trying also, the idea strategically is, if we can get several trigger ordinances passed, the state legislators will realize that it is something that is wanted by the citizens of New Jersey, right? Instead of just, yes, at some point when the bill that we have been working with Senator Zwicker on will be introduced, we will run what we call a typical legislative campaign, which means you target legislators on the relevant committees, you go ask for meetings, you show up in their office with constituents, and you have people write letters to them. But more powerful, we believe, is if we get local ordinances passed, then that's a real statement that the voters of New Jersey really want to be able to hold their municipal elections, school board elections, fire elections, any election that's local, with using ranked choice voting as the method of the election. So that's what we're talking about as the locality wins the drive to state legislative push, right? So where are we targeting those ordinances? Those ordinances, we are right now targeting where there's interest. That means where some of you either a local election official approaches us or a resident approaches us, comes to one of our meetings and says, I'm interested in RCV, but I want to just, I'm comfortable. I want to call my local legislator. I know one of my local council people. I'm going to get a group of my friends together and we're going to show up at city council meetings and we're going to start making comments and we're going to put the push on here to make this go forward. That is where we are at right now. There are some localities that we would like to be at, where we'd like to identify local activists or council people who are interested. Obviously, you look around, Speaker of the House, Kaufland, you go around and you look at some of his cities, municipalities in his district. Perth Amboy is on our hot radar. Why? Perth Amboy is also a nonpartisan municipality. It has the right to do runoffs. So for them, adopting ranked choice voting and using the instant runoff method is easy. So Perth Amboy, if any of you on the phone know any friend, anybody in Perth Amboy, please send them our way. Now we have a new Speaker of the House. Well, this is Mr. Scutari. We don't know that much about him, but I think more recently we identified Plainfield as within his district. And we do know that Plainfield has a pretty consolidated community-based organizations. I think People for Progress have been active in Plainfield. So there too, we are looking. At this moment, until the state enabling bills get introduced, we do not necessarily know what committee they will be in. And so we are not thinking that through. So right now, just in the general, nonpartisan elections seem to be the most receptive to ranked choice voting because of the ability to have some of them, I can't say many, some of the municipalities that have nonpartisan elections also have runoffs. And so RCV is easy for them. Next slide. So the current focus, and as I said, the current focus comes from where people, who are activists who are interested have been identified. This is where we're now trying to work with some people, whether a councilman or some local activists to get this going. And so again, if you are from these towns, we'll try to hook you up with the activists that we are working with. So that's that. Unless I didn't go into the detail of what our actual ordinance looks like. Is that coming up, Amber? I mean, April? No. So one of the things I will mention, because it is important to distinguish it from what other people are doing elsewhere. And this is both legally as well as, I think, politically. We have, in New Jersey, most towns, if not all towns, when they change their charter or they adopt a charter, the voters have to approve it, meaning it's not just a change that the municipality can do. So for instance, if you want to become a Faulkner Act, one of the Faulkner municipalities, that question of whether to become a Faulkner municipality has to be approved by the voters. Now I'm going to take let's say you're a township. Townships have the choice to have 5 or 7 members on their city council. The charter, the statutes that constitute the charter of townships, give the voters of the township the ability to approve or to change the number of city council people. So in that vein, the choice to whether to become or to vote, to use ranked choice voting, we believe ultimately lies with the voters and therefore needs to be approved by the voters. Secondly, New Jersey is a state that does not have the state right of initiative and referendum. That means that New Jersey voters can't go around, get a petition together, and get something on the ballot to change the state statutes. However, New Jersey does have, in some municipalities, the right of initiative. And all municipalities, I think all of you, if you're voters in New Jersey, know that you have the right to repeal a bond referendum or to approve a bond referendum. So what I'm saying to you is there are statutes that exist in New Jersey that give the right of referendum. That means referendum used in the broader sense of it goes to the ballot, there's a question, and the voters approve or disapprove. So what we're trying to do is that the state enabling legislation that we're seeking to get introduced and passed gives the right of initiative to every voter in any municipality to initiate whether they should use RCV. And when you initiate it, it too has to go to the ballot for approval by everybody. And we think that if the voters approve it, the voters will like it, as shown by New York City. Approval rating of RCV that was used in the primaries in New York City was, I think, about 70% people approved it. So with that, I'll end, and hopefully we can begin a discussion. What we're hoping tonight is there are some people online either who are trying to get an ordinance passed in their town. And we'd like to start talking about some of how they're approaching it, and also talk honestly about some of the difficulties that we can open it up and have a conversation that can be helpful to everybody on how we should approach this once you have an ordinance in hand, which Voter Choice New Jersey is willing to produce. So April, would you be able to start facilitating this, or should I just start? We can start with someone who's a victor, Chris Adar, who is very active on our outreach team, but was also very active in local politics, local activity in Hoboken, and was instrumental in getting our trigger ordinance to the Hoboken City Council. And it's my understanding that Chris is also working with some local activists, Veronica, who is not on the line, in Jersey City. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and then we'll move on. And everybody, this is not a matter of performance. This is telling us what was wrong, what was a little difficult, and we need to think it through as a group. A real working meeting now, not just presentations, about how we're going to proceed where we do have somebody who's interested in getting things going.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. I'll just give a little bit of background to kind of how I ended up approaching the Hoboken City Council and how we ended up getting our trigger ordinance passed. I've been a resident of Hoboken about 20 years. I've been a supporter of ranked choice voting for a long time, and I joined Voter Choice New Jersey in the midst of the pandemic, about mid-2020. So I would say a little over 2 months ago, obviously, as Renee just alluded to, on December 15th is when the City Council here in Hoboken passed the trigger ordinance that will bring ranked choice voting to Hoboken once the state enables that, and once our voters confirm they want that. That's a key component to this. It's a really exciting development for Voter Choice New Jersey and for Hoboken, because we're the first municipality in the state to pass this kind of legislation. And we're really hopeful that this will actually encourage other municipalities to follow suit. So how do we get there? How do we do it? Well, I will say that in 2017, we had a mayoral race where there were 6 candidates running. The city had eliminated runoffs a few years prior to this. So we had 6 candidates running. We had a mayor that was elected with 32% of the vote. And that kind of lit a fire a little bit, like, hey, how can we do this better? And why are we doing it this way? We have someone that's not majority, that's in office that the majority of people didn't vote for. Around that same time, Our Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro was working on some legislation with Assemblyman Andrew Zwicker from a different district. So they were kind of helping to pave the way for ranked choice voting and instant runoff within the state. So this was kind of percolating also at the same time in the state assembly. And we also had some public outreach sessions that Renee was part of, and Councilwoman Emily Jabor was part of, along with, I think, Fair Vote. We did an informational session at the public library. So all this was kind of brewing around the same time. So there was all this kind of chatter in Hoboken about ranked choice voting and how can we make this better than what we currently have. I had reached out to several city council members. We have 5 council members and 3 at large, so 5 wards and 3 at large. And pretty much everyone was generally supportive of ranked choice voting. I didn't have to do a lot of educating at the time. People knew what it was. I kind of had it easy a little bit. But we couldn't quite, I remember in, I think it was 2018, the city council did a non-binding resolution. And it just wasn't enough. We couldn't quite get to where we needed to be. And so I got involved with Voter Choice New Jersey in 2020. And that really made a huge difference, because what we're talking about here is the support structure that people like myself and people like you are looking for and that really need. So for me, it's so important that Renee kind of crafted this ordinance, this trigger ordinance, and I was able to essentially take the bones of this ordinance and hand it right over to my council person. And you have to remember, council people are busy, right? Some of our volunteers, they don't make a lot of money. They've got a lot of things on their plate. So if you can kind of hand them something and they're already interested in it, it's great. It's a terrific tool to give them, and it helps us get what we want out there as well. So I was able to get this ordinance from Renee. I essentially handed it off to my council person and another at-large person, Councilperson Jabor and Councilman Cohen, and they both co-sponsored it. Like right out of the gate, it was on the agenda within, I think, the next city council meeting after I passed them. They made a couple little tweaks because that's they should do that. They should look at it and kind of make it their own. But essentially, they were supportive. I reached out to pretty much all of the council people that I had talked to in years prior. And again, most were supportive. There was a little bit of concern, I'll just use that word, from a couple council people. And I reached out. I think Renee reached out as well. So again, you have that support from Voter Choice New Jersey. And sometimes people have questions. While I know a lot about ranked choice voting and I support it, I don't know everything. And sometimes people come up with questions and I'm like, I got to get back to you on that. And that's another great thing about Voter Choice New Jersey, is they're going to help you with that. They helped me, they're going to help you. So this trigger ordinance is, I think, part of the reason why we got a unanimous support from our city council is because of the trigger portion. It essentially allows the city council to say, I support it, but in the end, it has to go in front of the Hoboken electorate. So the state will enable it, but it doesn't just become that Hoboken's going to do ranked choice voting at that time. It's going to come in front of the voters for them to vote. So that alleviated, I think, some council people's concern about, well, it's very hard to say, I'm not going to put something in front of the electorate for a politician, right? So because you're essentially saying now, let's let people vote on it. So what are our next steps? Well, ultimately, this decision will come in front of the voters of Hoboken, right? So our next step is to educate. And we really have to start doing that now, because we want people to know about what ranked choice voting is before we get to that trigger portion, before that referendum comes in front of the electorate. We also really have an opportunity to play municipalities off of each other. So Hoboken was the first, and we can kind of say, yay, look at us. And maybe that will make Jersey City next door a little jealous, and they'll be like, well, we want to be next too. Or South Orange, or Edison, and Newark, and all of these other kind of municipalities that we're looking at, and kind of rubbing our hands a little bit like, coming. And lastly, you know, what's the big picture here? I mean, I would say this is you know, politics, generally speaking, nationally can be kind of depressing, and even statewide. It's easy to get discouraged, right? But engaging at the local level can be really energizing, and you can make a difference. We can connect with people and we can really make a difference. So I encourage anybody that's on this call that wants to get involved, to make a difference in their community. This is the place that you can really do it.
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to reinforce one point you made. You did bring it up at the end, but I remember you saying to me that when you first approached people, again, they were a little reluctant until they realized that they were not passing ranked choice voting, but they were giving the choice to the voters. And I think that's an important element here, because what you're really asking of your council people is to give the voters the opportunity to make the decision. And it's a real democracy initiative with a small d. Do you understand? Where in a sense, you're not saying you adopt ranked choice voting. You're saying, let the voters decide, let us decide whether we want to do it, be responsive to us. And I think that's a nuance here that I think is instrumental in trying to convince city council people who themselves don't particularly want to adopt ranked choice voting. They might feel a little pressure if their citizens are saying, we want the opportunity to decide.
Absolutely, yes.
So April, are you moving forward here?
I
Yep.
think our next update is Rich.
Good evening. You know, I'm glad I can make this
Glad.
meeting. Over here in Edison, you know, this was brought up to me. I'm a councilman here in Edison. I was running for mayor in Edison, and the field was crowded, but I basically would have penetrated multiple sides. But because the field was so crowded, there was really no opportunity for me. So I withdrew my name at that time, because I've witnessed elections in Edison where a mayor will win with 40% of the vote, because politically what the politicians do is they split the vote, basically so they can win, because they know they can't get 50%. So it's like a strategy that they run here in Edison anyway. I've been talking to some elected officials here, and basically like our community people about it. They're unaware of this. This is like a new thing to them. The elected people are hesitant because I guess if you figured out a formula for you to get into office, anything about changing that formula is scary. So I had a little resistance there with my fellow council colleagues. The public's interested though. A lot of that discussion kind of revolved around, you know, if we get someone that's getting more than 50% of the vote, that we're getting someone that a majority of the people really want, as opposed to a small majority, which is the whole point of this. But it's how we go out and we get that message out, you know, to the masses in Edison. I mean, we're not the largest community in Edison. I mean, in the township of New Jersey, but we're over 10,000, we're over 100,000, you know, people. So to get out to those people and get that message out, because it's not a simple message. It's kind of complex. Like when you have to explain it, it takes a couple of minutes to explain it. And, you know, most people are they get the flyer, you know what I mean? The flyer has the one line thing and they're good and they go on with their day and they take their kids to whatever they're doing. And so it does take time to kind of get out to everybody. And that's where I guess I'm going to see if we're going to struggle a little bit here. The residents of Edison are not against putting things up for a vote. We got a petition together for Suez, and the residents put it to a vote, and we stopped the township from selling it. Some people here know that. I know. Yes. Thank you, Renee. Currently, thank you for that. Currently, we're moving forward with a referendum for a ward system and expanding our council in Edison from 7 to 9. And I think we're starting that kickoff on Monday. And I think the ground effort is going to be fantastic, just like it was for Suez. So the township itself is engaging, the residents are engaging, and that's a positive part. But trying to get that message out to the masses is a harder thing to try and explain to them. I think I need like bullets that makes it easier for me to explain to people. I think that would really help. But that's where we are here in Edison. And April, I thank you for inviting me also to the meeting here. So appreciate it. Thank you.
So Rich, let's have a conversation about this, because you are now doing petitioning, and you're doing petitioning about a change in government. Even though it's a different change of government, it's still a petition to change your government to wards, to increase the size of the council and to increase the number of wards. Is that correct? Or you're moving 2 wards and you don't have any wards?
Well, we don't have any wards. We're moving to.
All right.
And
So
expanding the
that's a
council,
big
but-
change, and wards. And my sense is it might be helpful. I don't know if it's too distracting or confusing. If you had if we could produce for you a postcard that had RCV and explained RCV on it simply, and just told people how it would work if they had a ward, for instance, because then you would use instant runoff, because a ward is only 1 seat, right? As opposed to at large.
Correct.
And that you would use this opportunity, your circulators and your people would use this opportunity to at least expose people to RCV. So once, hopefully they get the idea about a petition, not a lot of citizens don't know it. They get the idea about a change in government petition, which is what the RCV petition is. It's a change in government, it could be a change in government. And that maybe you could just hand out these things and see if there's anybody else is interested. So once you win, you win your ward, or you get your petition signed and it gets submitted and it's deemed sufficient, you might have a group of people who are now ready to clamor to the city council to just pass the trigger ordinance on RCV. So that your trigger ordinance, the best of all worlds would be that on the ballot, that we get the state law passed, your trigger ordinance would put RCV on the ballot, and you'd have your change to wards on the ballot, and everybody would come out and vote, and you'd have a really healthy 2022 election, which many people in New Jersey want to happen, to get people out to the 2022 election. So I'm not saying, I think it's just an idea. I'd be really, you might come and say, no, it's going to be too confusing. People already don't even know what wards are. I don't know, but I'm trying to give you, if you're going to have the manpower and the circulators to go out there door to door talking about why you need wards in your community, handing them a really nice little just postcard explaining what ranked choice voting would be a really nice endeavor. What do you think about it? It's not to put you on the spot in front of everybody.
No, but I like that idea. And I'll tell you why. Most of the people here in Edison, the last time the ward system came up, I wasn't for it because I wasn't educated enough. I was working, my kids were little, I was taking them baseball. So I voted no. And that was some 20 years ago. So this is our opportunity now. Now with a town of 100,000 residents, the ward system failed by, I don't know if it was 28 or 30 votes. So
Really?
Yes, you don't come that close back then, and I think fall farther behind. So the people in Edison, most of the people that I've talked to are either they don't know about the ward or they're 100% for it. Certain sections of town feel like they've been neglected or left out over the years. They are very aware of the wards. So us getting out information to those people, it doesn't confuse them. They know where they are with the ward, but it will get them at least reviewing this and taking a look at this. And I think that's a good idea.
That'd be great. So we commit to you if you're going to circulate. And by the way, you need to send me the petition before you start circulating.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I just
can
want to
do
check
that.
it. I don't
Okay.
want some technical mistake and then it's deemed insufficient if it's controversial.
Okay, no,
That's
I'll
all.
get that.
Just send me the what you're printing out and starting to circulate. All right? Appreciate it.
do.
That's an aside. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, well, thank you. And well, that's our update here from Madison.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much, April, for your time.
Thanks so much. We are going to go to Bill next for an update on what he's working on.
I'm a member of a group called Soma Action, which is a grassroots organization in South Orange and Maplewood. And we're just starting now to promote the idea of a trigger ordinance in South Orange. There are certain issues in Maplewood, apparently, which we discussed yesterday in a meeting that we had. And so we're going to focus on South Orange for the present time. South Orange is a nonpartisan, at-large group called the Board of Trustees. We don't have members of a council, we have trustees. And I emailed a couple of them and I've gotten positive responses. So I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to get the Board of Trustees to enact the trigger ordinance for South Orange. I've been in touch. Soma Action has a voting rights group, and the last thing that we organized around was the Essex County effort to get new voting machines. And we lobbied very successfully to get the county to purchase hand-marked ballots with optical scanners. And so we were very pleased with that. And now I've been in touch, or I've emailed all the members of our voting rights committee about ranked choice voting, and that's about 45 people. And so I'm waiting for responses to them to see what we can do to start putting pressure on the members of the Board of Trustees. One problem that we have is that South Orange and Maplewood have a joint school system. We share a school system so that if South Orange enacts ranked choice voting, we can't make it apply to the Board of Education because Maplewood would have to do the same in order for it to apply.
And Bill, is it correct to say that you're the only joint school board in the city, in the state of New Jersey?
Only one I know of.
I think in every other municipality, the municipality itself will be able to change. The voters of the municipality will be able to articulate whether they want to use it, ranked choice voting for school boards, which are currently nonpartisan, ostensibly nonpartisan. Though I understand that sometimes names still appear on a line. That's what I've been told in some places.
Well, we had in the last school board election, which was in November, we did have a couple of people who ran as you know, as a sort of a mini slate, but it's pretty much individual nonpartisan for our school board.
Good.
So we're just starting now.
So do you think that you guys are gonna, since you seem to have, I know there are 9 trustees, that's a lot of people. How many people did you yourself reach out to that seemed somewhat interested?
Well, I emailed 2 and we only have, we don't have 9. We only have 5. We have 5.
Oh, how come I thought you had 9?
I don't know.
For some reason, I
The
thought the special
village-
charter said 9.
Well, the village, we have 5 trustees and a village president. And the village president is also a member of the Board of Trustees. It's a very strange system. we're the only one in the state like this.
Well, it's a special charter, and what I wrote in the chat was, it's a special charter. So let's say the state law gets changed. Let's say the voters of South Orange approve ranked choice voting. You still need the legislature to adopt it, because every change in your charter has to be approved by the state legislature. Archaic.
Yes. Well, it's about, I think it's a little over 100 years old.
And what's even more interesting is you're the village of South Orange, that's a township, and it's like covered by a special charter. It's like very confusing.
It
There's
is very,
something, just to let everybody know that by doing these ordinances, I found out a lot of municipalities are called townships in New Jersey, but they're not townships. They're just called townships, and they're governed by some other form of government. They changed the name to township because I think it was in the 60s or 70s, the federal government started giving certain types of money to townships. So they started changing their name to townships. But they're still governed, let's say, by the village form of government or the borough form of government. And it's just really strange. So somewhere, it was just really awkward. So behind, even if something says the town, Piscataway Township, it might not be a township, really.
Lots of fun with municipal charter language going on here. This is one of the most interesting things for me, in starting in on all of the local strategy work is I don't know any of this stuff. So I just get to listen to Renee talk about things that I have never heard of. And she's like, oh yeah, all of this is true. I'm like, if you say so, I will believe you. But I would love if we could just open it up for other folks, thoughts on any of the updates that we've heard earlier this evening, or if you would like to get something started in your town and have any questions for us on how to do that, we'll take a little bit of time for folks to talk it out. Adam, you have your hands up? Oh, or maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, hi. So I'm a student at Rutgers, and I'm wondering, just getting your thoughts. What do you think about maybe putting together a student group who would work to push forward an ordinance in New Brunswick?
Oh
my God.
Yeah.
You were my answered prayer. It's a conversation that's come up several times in our group. I'm big proponent of engaging the young people.
And they really love student groups. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, who try to change their form of government. If you are so nice, Adam, to do this, I'll let you in on a history that resulted in a retaliation state statute that you can't do a change of government initiative every 10 years, simply because there was a Rutgers student group called Empower Our Neighborhoods that was working to get wards in New Brunswick, and did it twice. And the second time, I think they lost by like 50 votes, maybe even less. April, you might know the real number. And what happened? The powers that be in New Brunswick went to the state legislature and got a law passed saying that if you lose a change of government initiative, you can't do another one for 10 years. So they made sure that all those Rutgers students had graduated and had left, but not everybody has left. So that's the long story
People
short of
stick
that.
around.
But Amber, we need to, Amber, who's on our line, was a former Rutgers student, and so was April. And I think student organizing is their thing. So this is wonderful.
And there's a
Yes, I
powerful
would-
voice at Rutgers. Very
Yeah, no,
powerful voice that is
I'd
needed.
imagine that lots of other students would also be interested in joining in on this.
You
I'm
might
sure
even,
lots-
I don't know if you would know if RUSA, the Rutgers state government, student government might also be interested. They were a plaintiff in a same-day registration lawsuit that New Jersey Appleseed brought several years ago. So RUSA might even be interested as well. That would be phenomenal.
Okay, I could take it up with them. I mean,
Maybe
I
we
don't know,
could convince
would you guys be
RUSA
able to
to
help
use
with
RCV.
this?
We are
would love to
absolutely,
help with it.
we are absolutely able to help. I'm glad you asked that question. In fact, if everyone could please make sure, because we know our time is winding down and we want to be respectful of each and every one of your time. Again, thank y'all so much for coming. This has been amazing. But please make sure that in the chat, Sally's going to drop again a sign-in sheet. So God forbid if we lose contact, we have some way to keep engaged and get something started. I live right off of River Road. My daughter goes to Rutgers, so I'm very accessible, as well as April, who's in New Brunswick, to help get this started and at Rutgers. Adam, we are really excited that you're here, as we are with each and every one of you. And thank you so much again to all of our speakers for letting us know that this Voter Choice New Jersey and ranked choice voting is alive in New Jersey, and it is working, and we are on fire. And I hope you guys are excited about this momentum that we're building in this movement, because no, it's not a moment, it is a movement, and we got to keep moving. So just wanted to make sure that, you know, housekeeping things were done, that we make sure we get your contact information. And to remind you all, although we like to be on time and end at 7:30. We're going to stick around for people who want to continue to ask questions, chat with us about things that maybe you didn't want to do in the chat or out loud. We have nothing but time. There's no more football on, so I'm here. But we do want to make sure that we get the contact information. And I also want to make sure that before you leave, and after we thank you, that Voter Choice New Jersey is on the move, and we need a lot of movers and shakers. One of the things that I met with Renee and April within this past week was increasing our donations and reaching out to organizations who believe exactly what we're doing. And they want to funnel monies to groups like us to continue to help us build this initiative. One of the key ways that we can be successful in garnering those monies is from donations from small grassroots sponsors like yourself. So I would like to encourage each and every one of you to commit to something. There are several ways that you can actually follow up and do work here with ranked choice voting, ACA Voter Choice New Jersey. One of those is join a team. April shared the slide, and you can see that there were some organizations that are missing leadership, but there are also parts of the team that are missing just bodies. We're always open to more members because there's a lot of work still to be done. Another way that you can do some other next step is join or start like a local action in your town. Adam, you're the first one to say exactly what this meeting is designed to do, to fuel and energize those who want to do something locally and get the conversation started about Voter Choice New Jersey in the community. Another thing you could do, another next step, is write a letter to the editor. And if you do think that's something you can do, or maybe you're not good, but you wouldn't mind try it with some help, we are a very supportive organization. We have resources and allies that when we don't know, we can go to assist us with getting this initiative moving forward. So if you're one of those people who wouldn't mind writing a letter to the editor, please put your name in the chat, sign the Google sheet for attendance, or just contact April right now. And of course, we constantly have petitions that are out there. Amber does a lot of legwork when we're out there canvassing, and with the weather starting to break, we hope to see more of us being able to do these engaging activities to keep voter choice in the forefront. And finally, which brings me to my area, is donations. We need money to continue this. We are a small group, but we have some progress that we're making in our financial markets, and we want to encourage you to take part. Now, there's more than one way you can get someone to sponsor your donation. I have friends who have donated just to help me out because I asked, and they believe in something that we're doing here, and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired of the line getting their vote, but yet their issues and concerns not being addressed. You can also make monthly donations. Again, this is a movement. This is not just a moment. So that $5 donation is great, but it's only for that moment. We're trying to have sustainability. And one of the ways to do that is maybe make a $5 a month long-term commitment to this cause, because we know that every dollar counts and everything that you do helps to continue to move this issue forward. And finally, if you are a member of an organization, a union, a corporate employer, maybe you may go to them and say, this is really exciting and engaging civic opportunity that I'm a part of, and I really think we can do some work by having you match my donation. So those are different ways that you can donate. There's a link in the chat And you can also go on our website as well, that you can make a donation. There's also links that you can sign up to be a volunteer. Anything you can do at this point is greatly appreciated. And once again, I am Kamula Tillman, fundraiser lead, your host for the evening. And I'm so grateful and thankful that each and every one of you joined us. And I hope you will commit. Don't let this meeting be in vain. Do something. Maya Angelou says you have to do the best with what you can, but when you know better, do better. So we're encouraging you to do better. If you feel that the election process could be reformed, as we all do because we're here, then do something. Make a donation, donate your time, or just continue to spread the word, sign a petition. And I assure you that ranked choice voting will be here in New Jersey before we realize it. Thank you again for your time, everybody. Stick on if you want to keep talking to us. We are here. But if you have to drop, we appreciate you coming.